Sometimes we think that we know the real God, and we don't. Amen. Because if the disciples couldn't even recognize him, that's a red flag to me. That's a huge red flag to me, because the disciples are our 12 foundation stones of the city of God. Do you know that? They're the 12 foundation stones that the city of God is built on. Our foundation stones sometimes didn't even recognize Jesus. Is anybody with me? The 12 foundation stones who were with him all the time sometimes didn't recognize who he was, and sometimes even questioned who he was to his face, and sometimes rejected him. Do you remember Peter? He's like, Lord, I will never reject you. Jesus is on the way to the cross, and Peter denies him 3 times. 3 times Peter says, I don't know that man. I mean, if this doesn't convict your heart, I don't know what else will, because to me, I don't want to be that person that I've walked my entire life with Jesus and suddenly I reject him. I don't know him. I'm like, I don't know this man. I've given my life over to this man. I don't know him anymore. And I find myself rejecting the very Lord that gave me life. Because when you're born again, you are closer to Jesus than you will ever be when you're on this earth. I want to bring that to you, because when you are first born again and you fall in love with Christ, it's the closest on earth you will ever be to Jesus, because it's pure love. Suddenly, the God that loves you, you experience him as real and you love him back. And it's like nothing else matters. If anyone else had a born-again experience like that, you should talk about it, because that was my born-again experience. My born-again experience was I met the real God, and I loved him because he loved me, and I couldn't stop talking about him. I was obsessed with reading the word. I was obsessed with praying for people. That's what happened to me when I got born again. So I knew him like I knew him, like I knew him. Amen. And what happens to Christians is they're born again in that state, and then years go by and they start becoming Peters and Thomases and people that are like, I'm not even sure if he's with me anymore. I don't even know if I know him anymore. And then that's when we start building little idols. Because we're built to worship something. We're built to worship something. Amen? So we start building ourselves little idols because we're built to worship something, but we don't feel like we know him anymore. So you guys have to know him. That's why in the book of Revelation, the book of Revelation is a warning in the beginning to the 7 churches. It's a warning to the 7 churches that already existed. And one of the warnings is, you've done all these things, but I have one thing against you. You've done everything right, but I have one thing against you. You have forgotten your first love. You can't even remember what it's like to love Jesus, how you did when he first met with you. That was a warning. That was a warning, because the Lord operates through passion. He operates through the love that you have for him. Because how can you bring the love of Christ to the world if you don't even love him? How can you do that? You're not even burning for him.